Hey everyone, welcome to the show, Handing the Shame Back. I'm Gloria Masters, I'm your host, and it's my privilege to bring this to you. Every week we have a survivor who shares their story, and this week is no exception. But due to the nature of the topic, there is a trigger warning, and that's so that you can go to some resource and support on the show notes rather than stay watching the video if you get triggered. It's quite understandable if you do, and we just want to make sure you're safe. I have the wonderful Tracy Lee from the Sunshine Coast in Caloundra with me today. And she's an author, she's an activist, she's a lived experience CSA victim, and she is here to talk to me. How lucky am I? Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Gloria. How are you going?
Really good.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
First of all, I just want to say I feel very privileged to be talking to you today. I'm a huge admirer of you, and I just want to say thank you for providing a platform for survivors to tell their story. You and Holly Ann Martin are, in my eyes, courageous, pioneering heroes. So before I go into my own story, I just want to say I'm also a passionate campaigner on prevention and ending these horrendous crimes on children. Crimes that, as we know, affect us for the rest of our lives and also the people we love.
Yes.
But I also know how difficult it is to get heard and to make the inroads to a revolution of change and action. And so I've also experienced being intimidated into silence by those in power.
Yep. Okay, so Tracy, look, thank you. And really important that we hear from you today. So, in your own words, just as much or as little as you're comfortable to share, can you tell us, please, about your history of child sexual abuse?
Okay. So I grew up in Perth in Western Australia in the 1960s and 70s. I'm the eldest of 4 children. I'm the only girl. My mum was only 17 years of age when she became pregnant with me, and my father was 10 years older than her, which in my opinion is in itself a bit of a red flag. Anyway, because of the pregnancy, my parents got married, much to my grandparents' chagrin, and they had 3 more children, 2 of which are twins. So by the time mum was 22, she had 4 children under the age of 5, was living in a housing commission property and barely surviving on a taxi driver's income. As well as that, my mum described her relationship with my father as gunpowder and matches, and it was. Hostility and domestic abuse reigned in our household, and our father had no time for any of us except when he was abusing us, and in my case, sexually as well. But my father wasn't the only one. There were others, including a well-known celebrity when I was 9 years old, an older neighbourhood boy I was intentionally lured to when I was 12, and the attempted rape and assault by a man on the Mandurah Bridge, which is in Western Australia, when I was 15. On top of that, I witnessed my father sexually abusing another girl, a neighbour. And my earliest memory of sexual abuse by my father is at age 4, which isn't to say that's when it began, because photos of me, as well as other stories that came out years later by relatives and neighbours, suggest that it started much earlier. One of those stories is quite disturbing, so I'm really glad I don't remember it. I was subjected to years of sexual abuse by my father. So much. The abuse was egregious, was constant, and it was without mercy. And the purgatory of that abuse took pretty much every ounce of the person I think I was meant to be. And it did leave an empty shell of mistrust and no direction.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, my recollection of the first time was when my mum was in hospital having my twin brothers. In those days, women stayed in hospital for up to 2 weeks, not like they do now, where it's a day or two. But in this case, it was that couple of weeks that my father was to look after me and my younger brother. Though I was only 4, the memory of that event is quite vivid. because my father used this time to not only sexually abuse me, but also inflicted other terrorising acts on me whilst Mum was in hospital.
Yeah.
One of those involved a plague of spitfire caterpillars that had invaded the trees in our street. And he knew I was absolutely petrified of them. I don't know if you know what they look like, but they're the most hideous looking things. They bunch up and they're evil. Anyway, he put a shovel in my face and insisted that I touch them, and I wouldn't. So he put them on me. And obviously at 4, I became hysterical. As a result of that contact, I developed a horrible, irritating rash. By the time my mum came home, she came home to a very miserable, scared little girl. In 1969, I began my first school, because I went to a couple in that year, in a place called Subiaco. I was taught by a nun who thought cruelty and humiliation was the best way to teach an already fragile, timid little girl. And so wouldn't allow me to go to the toilet during class in my first week. Unable to hold it, I urinated in the class, was made to clean up the floor, and then wear my wet and smelly clothes for the rest of the day. I guess this was my introduction to many more injustices that I would endure.
Can I just stop you there? So, Tracy, thank you for what you're sharing, and there's so many threads there. If it's okay, it'd be good to just relax and discuss them.
All right.
You're doing great, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
And hello, survivors. Welcome to the show. Look, the fact that Dad had decided to tug at you and abuse you meant that you had no choice but to be conditioned to this. And as you've been describing what happened, it sounded a lot more than just sexual abuse. So you had the psychological abuse, physical abuse, and, you know, some would say almost, you know, that whole mind numbing coercive control over you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, Tracy, as you're speaking, what I'm wondering is, you know, this went on with your father, obviously. Then you had other people involved, including a celebrity, which I gather you will not be able to name.
No.
That's fine. Don't need to. The fact is, you've had experiences of other people abusing you as well.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is, as you're describing that, what we do know to be true is that if a girl has been abused under the age of 12, you're 3 times more likely to then be abused many times before you're an adult.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a phenomena. So it's just the conditioning that you had, and the impact obviously meant other people abused you as well. The question, I guess, that I'm getting to, because I will get there, is knowing all of this and having experienced all of this as a child, did you ever feel that Mum had any idea of what was going on, or suspected anything, or tried to protect at all, any of that?
I actually don't think that my mother, obviously I came out many years later,
Yes. Yeah.
actually at the wedding of my younger brother, because my father at that stage was, he was there. I hadn't seen him in years, but he was picking up my own daughter at that stage, wouldn't leave her alone, and I lost it. So that was, I guess, the first time that I came out properly with the family. During the time that I was growing up, and I cut my mum some slack because, like I said, she was 17 when she got pregnant with me. By the time I was 13, she was 30. Like, she was still young.
Yeah.
She also had 4 children, very, very close. And she lived with a monster. I mean, he was just a horrible tyrant of a person. He didn't give any of us a moment's peace. So she was living in domestic. I don't know even how she managed to readjust because there was so much going on. So I have cut her a lot of slack. I do understand how she could have missed a lot of it. But years later, many years later, I've discovered that my grandmother knew, and she did the very best that she could to try and protect me. But again, he was an evil man. I mean, he smacked people around, and he just did.
So how do you know that your grandmother knew?
My uncle, that's now in his 90s, told me, and very recently.
So what did he say to you, if you're
He
able to
said, you
share?
know that your grandmother knew. And thinking back, there were times when I know I used to stay at her place during school holidays. Loved it.
Oh, I
That was my
bet.
safe place.
Yes.
And my grandparents adored me, not so much my brothers, but me. And that had connotations in itself because that created jealousy with my younger brothers because I was the favourite. But in actual fact, I was just very quiet, withdrawn. I was easy, I suppose. I think she suspected because I showed, we say that victims don't speak up for a long time. Well, I always say I can't, that doesn't sit very well with me because we do speak up. We may not verbally speak up, but we speak up in many other ways. And in my case, I mean, I had urinary tract infections, one after the other at a young age. I was bleeding in my underwear. There were times when I was so hysterical and it was so out of character for me that if that wasn't a red flag, I don't know what was. There was just so many other things. And I also verbally spoke up.
Who did
So
you speak up to?
I spoke up to a teacher who was suspected.
Wow.
I spoke up to a headmaster while I was getting the cane. That's another story. There's so many people. I spoke up to doctors,
Wow.
not verbally, but they could see.
Yeah. So I just want to stop you there because I think it's really interesting what you're saying. You know, yes, the minute this abuse occurs, a child's behavior has to change because that's what happens. You can't, children don't know how to hide this stuff. So although the words may not be said, I 100% agree with you, Tracy. The body or the behavior or the interaction with other people is showing that something's happening. So yes, 100%. But then not only were you showing through your behavior, but you were also using words as well. And what were people, or did anyone pick up what you were putting down in terms of telling them?
That's the problem, Gloria. I think many people did, but they chose to look away.
Okay.
I mean, the big thing for me is, and I worked in an industry where I met a lot of young, particularly Indigenous children, and I saw how so many people deliberately didn't want to go there. They deliberately looked away. And I think in the 60s and 70s, it was particularly bad.
Yeah.
It was, we were made to shut up. We weren't supposed to speak out.
Yeah.
I don't know when you grew up, but that's been my experience for most of the people that I know in my age group. Was we were ruled by the rod and we weren't allowed to talk. So what hope did we have? I think people knew. I just think that they chose not to do anything about it, which
So,
just doesn't sit well now, does it?
no,
But
no. And then, of course, as you became a teenager and abuse continued, what age do you, or can you recall, did it ever stop when you were living at home?
no, in fact, it got worse because my parents split many times, which caused us to move many times, which meant that I had to change my curriculum in my schools and my friends many times. It was just an upheaval. But when my parents finally separated, it was like a big yahoo for us. We were happy about it. But the courts, the family courts in those days also ruled. And in their inimitable wisdom, they decided that I had to go to access visits with my father every fortnight. And I pretty much was like a lamb to the slaughter. So at the age of 12, and from then on, I either went or my mother didn't get the maintenance that we really needed. I mean, we were living hand to mouth as it was.
Yeah.
So to carry that at 12 was pretty bad. But I also, during that time, that's when I got a venereal disease from my father. So I'm going through puberty. I've changed schools yet again. I've got this horrible disease that I had to deal with and nobody to talk to about. It was a pretty miserable life, Gloria.
Yeah.
Pretty miserable. And I know I'm speaking to someone that's lived the ultimate misery.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that when I talk to people like you and other survivors, it puts things into perspective, into not how lucky we were, because we weren't, but how much worse it might have been, I suppose. And the fact that sometimes I don't think us survivors realise how resilient we must be, how incredible we must be.
Yeah.
But when I look back and even writing some of the stuff just so I could talk to you today, even and reflecting on things, and of course we don't want to go to some places, we just don't want to open that door. But on reflecting some of the things, I go, wow, how did I get through that?
Yeah.
But here I am today, luckily, fortunately, with a family and with grandchildren, which I adore. But I also think how cruel a world we live in that allows this to happen every day, and why we haven't succeeded in combating it. That's just my opinion, but I'll be out there fighting probably till the day I die.
Of course.
To prevent, more children.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, the courage you would have had to have shown, and of course, having venereal disease at the age of 12, you wouldn't have even known what the hell was going on or understood what that was, and to feel that you were really responsible for whether or not your family ate, because maintenance depended on whether or not your father had access to you. So all of that's quite a big deal for
It was quite a thing to carry.
Child. It's huge. It's
On
huge.
top of the fact that, of course, I'm going through puberty, so then I had the added problem of thinking, could I get pregnant?
Yes. Yeah.
Fortunately I didn't, but the chances were that I could have.
What age did you have to keep seeing your father till?
Oh, right up till I was 16, till I left home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my father's, this was the problem for my life, was that it just kept going on and on and on. I get rid of him and then he'd be back. So I started a high school, and who was the bus driver at our high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, my father.
Yeah.
But then I had to live with the worry of my girlfriends being subjected to him, knowing damn well that he was, the way that he was.
And I guess, and look, up to you if you're able to, but can you tell us a little bit about you observed or saw your father abusing another girl? Was that when you were 12?
No, that was when I was about 6. That was in
Okay.
the House of Horrors, which the house my mum bought,
Yeah.
and did up, and it was a very bad state of affairs. Actually, a famous rock group owned it, but they left it in disarray. Nobody wanted to buy it, so she bought it. And that house is in it's quite a prestigious suburb in Perth now. But at the time, she got in there and fixed it up and made it a really lovely home. But to me, it became the House of Horrors, because not only did I live some horrible events there, but witnessed the neighbourhood girl. My father loved to dig holes. He loved to kill things and he loved to dig holes. And one of the things he did was he built like a mechanics pit in the garage. It was quite deep. And one day I saw him out there in the pit, and he had the girl from across the road doing unspeakable things to her. And that was the first time, and I'd seen it several times. When 1997, I went to police. I'm jumping forward a little bit. And I disclosed that information to them about this girl that I'd seen. And at the time, again, I wasn't believed. My story wasn't believed. Because I'd included the celebrity in that story, and they didn't believe the celebrity, in a million years they could get. Like, I was just, he was such a superstar at that stage that it discredited my own story. I basically thought, if I'm going to go for my father, better I don't put that in about him, because nobody's going to follow it up. And as a matter of fact, they didn't investigate. But 20 years later, when they didn't investigate, the whole thing collapsed. The magistrate said there's not enough evidence, and that was that. That was very hard on me, because it took a lot to go to the police, a real lot, as you know.
Yeah.
And to finally do what you have to do. So when they just dropped it, bear in mind, for years I'd lived with the fact that I knew my dad had done it to other girls. Father, not dad. 20 years later, I went to a school reunion, and it was a 35-year school reunion. That's how long afterwards. And a woman came up to me that I used to go to school with, and she was crying her eyes out. I'm like, whoa, right? And she said, I've been carrying a secret for 30 years. I saw what your dad did to you. I witnessed it, I saw it. And I never came forward, but if you ever want to go to the police. The next thing, a friend that I was very close to came forward and said, so did I. I saw. And they told me what they'd seen. And I thought like most of us, thought I'd hidden it well. That evoked another court case. In that time, an investigating officer went into the history of my very first statement. And I remember taking a phone call from the lawyer at the time, and he said, you need to sit down. He said, I can't believe what I've read, because everything that you said in that first statement is true. And he said, we know because we have located those people. This is like 50 years now, like have gone by, and they've all corroborated what you said. And yes, they were victims, and asked us what took us so long to find them. So in the end, a court case came about. In 2019, it was set. Leading up to that, it was pretty much on the eve of that court case, my father passed away. And that was it. So my justice never happened. Having said that, the other person, the celebrity in question, he also was unmasked by many other survivors, and he went to jail.
Good.
But he's also now deceased.
Gosh. Well, so there's been a lot that's gone on within your family. Obviously, your mum knew, you talked to her, it came out at your brother's wedding.
Yeah.
What was her kind of response? What was the family like once you had disclosed as an adult?
Oh, completely dismantled.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
My mum, God love her, she broke down.
Yeah, of course.
She kind of knew, I think. What helped her in a way was her very best friend had only found out that her daughter had been abused by her grandfather. and her daughter was about the same age as mine. So they kind of had this bonding experience over something as awful as that. But once it had come out, it dismantled the family. I have no contact with my brothers whatsoever.
Because
Because I think for a lot of reasons, Gloria. One is one of them never believed it. Never
okay.
believed it. But they were so young, they were much younger than me.
Yeah.
And the other one had gone through a lot himself. I mean, bear in mind, my father was a monster, not just to me.
Oh yes, I know. Yeah.
He'd been awful to my brothers. He was not a father. He was just an abuser. That was it. So again, I cut them some slack as much as we don't have anything to do with each other. And I think that's a good thing because since that's happened, there's been a little bit more peace in my life. I only wish them the very best, but there was so much jealousy and we were sized up against each other. We were played off against each
Yeah.
other. We were set up.
Yeah.
We were, so my mum, after that, was very supportive. She was with me championing all the way, pretty much. And it was a very unfortunate thing that by the time the second court case came about and she was long gone, she passed away. So she missed that.
Yeah. She'll be with you and watching you though through it all. She'll be proud.
Thank you. I think she
So,
did too.
yeah. So, Tracy, tell us about what, you obviously moved through early adulthood, moved into being in your late 20s, 30s. What kind of helped you in your recovery from this?
Okay. I think the biggest thing, I'm going to actually just refer to some of my things because I don't want to forget something. The biggest recovery for me, I think, has been meeting other survivors and victims and having a bit of a sisterhood because they know the pain and they have a genuine understanding, I suppose. I've had some amazing people stand beside me and work with me. Fighting for the prevention and to end these crimes. Like I have a wonderful colleague called Emma Reese. She's a well-known child protection practitioner who is doing a PhD on child exploitation, as a matter of fact, and who not only stands up for what she believes in, but she sacrificed well-paid positions after confronting what she believes is misleading practice. So she is a pretty amazing lady. But like me, Emma champions the importance of having lived experience victims and survivors as being essential to the process. I mean, we're all crying out all the time, we need to be heard. But we still sort of come along as small tokenistic numbers. We get handpicked, I think, just to maintain control and to keep the status quo. So I love these people. The other thing that for me, for recovery, is I love dancing. And I know you do too. So I'm big on dancing. I was a big dancer when I was at school. I got selected to do ballet, but everything that I was ever wonderful and I was good at, my father took away from me. So that's another sad side of my story. But now I do dance. I'm a Zumba instructor. I go on cruise ships and I dance constantly. I think one of the big things for me, which maybe not for other people, is I have a home of my own now. It's a safe space, something I never really knew when I was growing up. And it's very, very important to me. Having said all of that, I don't believe I will ever truly recover because to me, a real recovery involves the recognition and worldwide apology to the generations of us for the blind-eyedness and the ignorance and the cover-ups by governments and the education and medical professions and the safeguarding authorities who were charged with protecting us. We're the most vulnerable. We are the most vulnerable.
Mm.
I guess that's about it.
I think Tracy and Survivor's watching, isn't she amazing? It's a very, very useful conversation, Tracy. Thank you. I think healing and recovery is possible, and I think for all of us, it shows itself in different ways. So, for instance, one of the things you've alluded to is dancing, and that's great because it's such a good release and has the feel-good factor.
Just
But
the endorphins going.
even being able to enjoy something is recovery. So I think I would gently assert that recovery is what we can make it to be. I learned a long time ago not to rely on anyone admitting or owning or apologizing or accepting what they did to me because I'd still be waiting.
Yeah.
So I decided that I wasn't going to let that rest with people who didn't deserve my time or attention. And I decided that when it was enough for me, I would just accept that where I was in my life was a sign of recovery, and that I'm mentioning forgiveness, Tracy, you're not, but the weight of forgiveness is something as survivors we often get tasked with or told we should be doing. And I guess what I'm here to say is no. If anyone feels like they wish to forgive, great. If anyone feels like they don't wish to forgive, great, because it's dealer's choice. And I think when it feels time and if it feels right, forgiveness may seem appealing. But let me just share that in my own story, I chose to forgive because the weight of it was too much for me otherwise. Now, that doesn't mean I saw anyone or I spoke to anyone. That just meant in my heart and soul, I decided to forgive so I could move on, and I did. When we look at that, a long-winded way of coming back to what you're saying about recovery or healing, sometimes the very things that we think don't matter are the biggest things of all. So the fact that you've been able to make something of your life, make a beautiful home for you and your family, have your children, have your grandchildren you mentioned earlier. How amazing is that?
Oh, it is.
And not what at all you had perhaps thought possible back then.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And they are the joy of my life, that's for sure.
Yes.
I'd hate to not have it, actually.
Yeah. So that's your recovery, Tracy. In spite of everything, look what you've managed to create. And I just honour you with that, because I think that's very, very special.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
You're my inspiration, honestly. Hearing it come from your mouth has so much more validity. I think, and it comes from somebody else, especially a psychiatrist or psychologist. It's like, well, okay, you read that in a book and you had to study it. But when I hear it from someone like you, it has so much more power.
Yeah.
So much more power. So thank you. Thank you. You are an exceptionally marvelous woman. Honestly, I'm so happy that one day I came across your videos on a YouTube thing, and it was quite by accident. But once I started, I couldn't stop watching. And I thought, you know what? I have to do this. So thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, because I'll tell you something else, Gloria. My mum passed away, and she did know that there'd been sexual abuse growing up, but she never heard my story. She didn't know how, when, or why. And in actual fact, as you know, there are very few people that ever want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. They don't want to know. So just being able to do that today, I think, has been part of my healing.
Yeah.
And I thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful. And we're not finished yet, Tracy,
Oh,
because I'm going to pick your brains now.
okay.
So keep breathing, and survivors watching, take note of what recovery can look like for you, because it won't be what it looks like for Tracy or me,
Mhm.
but we're all different, and that's our gift. Honor yourselves. As you think about recovery, and it's different for all of us, as we've just said, and I think about, what you've been through and what you've managed to do and overcome, which has been massive. What advice would you give to, say, someone who's new to Survivorland, who's new to this, has only just managed to find their voice and think about, what do I do to get through? Because it's horrible to think about.
I think if you can find others, a sisterhood, I think that has been, if you can find others that are willing to listen and be with you, but particularly the group that are like us, I feel like we are a group on our own, but we really are a group on our own. And when we galvanize, there is a strength just in that. I think for me, I get comfort now knowing that my grandchildren, I have granddaughter, can be allowed to ask questions. She is being exposed to things that we never were. She is being taught safe behavioural management and how to keep herself safe. And I think if you can take just a little piece of that when you're coming out or you're a survivor now, you've realised that, hey, I've gone through all this, and treat that as a strength, because we've lived through all that. But as things are changing, progressing, there is I think there's like a movement that's happening where there's a strength behind passing that on to the next generation and the ones in the future, which is what our goal is. Apart from prevention, is to pass on the fact that, this can't happen. You need to protect yourself. You need to watch yourself, all that sort of stuff. I'm a bit lost here, Gloria, as to what to say, because
Oh, it's good.
it's such a difficult one. And like you said earlier, we're all different. We all act different, feel different. The other night, can I just bring up the other night, I was actually involved in a forum for sibling abuse survivors. And every person that was in that group was in a different time, a different space. So they're going through a court thing, or they've only just come out, or whatever. But I did notice that each one of them responded a little bit differently. Some people found it very hard to speak at all. So I think it depends on where you're at the time.
Yeah. But look, don't beat yourself up too much, because I do believe that what worked for you may be a universal thing. So, for instance, being able to talk to others, having a sisterhood, which is like a group, very powerful. And
Very,
that's something, yeah.
yeah,
And for instance, for me, it's meditation and exercise. Great. Well, there'll be people out there that might find that's useful for them
yeah,
too. So
yeah,
it's basically what helped you may help 15 people who watch it, or 1,500 who watch it. They might think, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way.
yeah.
So even going into a forum or having a support group and talking about these things could be a powerful healing tool. We just don't know. But as you said right at the beginning, talking and sharing with people with lived experience, there's a whole different feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
It
Absolutely.
resonates more differently because we know we've been
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
right.
never underestimate the power of what heals you, potentially being able to heal others too.
I would
That's
say though, Gloria, that the one thing that I've discovered, and I have like a little group of warriors, I call them, right? And we're all survivors.
mm,
But what I've discovered is that that's very hard to find. It's not a conversation maker. You don't, even with a
no.
bunch of girlfriends, you don't usually go down that road. So you could be sitting with a group of people. And the only way that I've now got my little warrior of followers is because I did a news article. I got so sick and tired. And in 2021, legislation came out where anybody could be charged if they see or witness a child being abused and they don't report, then they
Yes.
would be charged, right? It was mandatory. Yet there was no advertising, there were no billboards, there was nothing. Nobody knew about it. And the only reason I knew about it was because my daughter works in child protection. She's a lawyer. And she said, "Hey, Mum, this is great."
Yeah,
And I said,
yeah,
"That's great. That's terrific. But who knows about it?
yeah,
Who knows?" So I thought, okay, I'll petition. And I did. I petitioned MPs. I went to a place called 1 William Street here in Brisbane, where all the officials live. And I couldn't get past first base. Nobody wanted to know. I even decided, you know what? I'll pay for the first billboard to be put up. And the billboard company said, yeah, no, we don't want your money because it's too controversial.
yeah, yeah,
You know this story,
yeah,
don't you?
yeah,
So I did a news article story up here on the Sunshine Coast, a big one. I said, you know what? I'm gonna talk my story, and I'm gonna say we really need to get it out there. We can't keep hiding it. You can't bring a legislation in and then not do anything with it. And it was from that story I went to a Zumba class, and it was unbelievable because in that class of 40, 11 women came to me and told me. And
yeah.
some of them were in their 70s and 80s, and they had never disclosed before. So that is when it all sort of started to grow.
And that is the power of having a voice that you can use. And it was your time and you needed to do that. Tracy, we need to end, but I just wondered if there's any final kind of statement or words you would like to share as we're closing off today.
Um, I do think that there needs to be a little bit more anger. And I know that sounds terrible, but when I say anger, I mean what you're doing is fantastic and marvelous, but there's not enough of you. This needs to be worldwide. We need to
Yeah.
be, and there needs to be, we've had 50 years of task force inquiries. We've had women marching in the streets, but everything gets dead battered. It gets gagged, it gets shut down. I just think if we all got a bit more angry and said no more, that we might just get a little bit further down the road in preventing
Well,
this from happening.
well, what a powerful activist.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you so much,
thank
Tracy.
you.
Just stay there, please. And survivors, once again, when people find the courage to come on the show and share their story, what the unique aspect of it is always phenomenal in my opinion, and I think it's really important. And to have someone like Tracy who's experienced so much and can still smile and can still find in her heart the ability to share and to genuinely care for others and try and make change is really inspiring. So, as always, beautiful ones, I see you. I stand beside you and I believe you.